Polls are best taken as a snapshot of a moment in time, okay? That's my qualifier. That said, this is a bad moment in time for Biden, all right? And why? His age, which really goes to stage, right? Because not everybody ages the same way. Clearly, people feel that he is not at his best. 73% of voters say age hampering mental capacity. 76%, more than 3 in 4, don't think he finishes a second term. And you'll remember, there was a lot of, I just want one term to get us right, talk from Biden early on when his age was a concern in the last election. Our recent NewsNation poll found 65% of Democrats want Biden to get primaried. Very unusual for an incumbent president in party to get that kind of scrutiny. Plus, if you weren't confused enough about the new COVID variant and whether or not you're supposed to wear a mask, and now some are saying that the tests don't work, I don't know if any of it's true, but I know a lot of it's politicized, and Biden did not help. Did you see what he did yesterday? He has the mask on, he takes the mask off, and he's in front of everybody. It's like, hey, just keep it between us, as he's on live television. But his wife tested positive for COVID, and we hope she's doing well. And he's like playing with the mask. It was like a page out of the Trump book. Let's bring in former Atlanta mayor and Biden White House senior advisor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and the host of the Young Turks, Kasparian. So I start with you, Keisha Lance Bottoms. I said it's just a moment in time. It's just a moment in time. But the only defense I hear from Democrats about Biden is, hey, he's got a good story to tell. You know, the economy, No. This is about him and his capacity to lead us in the way that we need. How much trouble do you think the party's in with their candidate?
I don't think the party's in trouble at all. And I'll tell you why. We had this conversation a lot leading up to the last election. If you recall, Biden was trailing in the polls at that time. And there was a lot of talk about he would never win. He could never pull it out. And here he is today, president of the United States. And you hit the nail on the head, Chris. Polls are a snapshot in time. Now, I'm not a pollster, but I do remember when I ran for mayor, what pollsters would say to me is that you watch trend lines. What I see is not a candidate who's falling in the polls, so that's a good sign. There's a lot of room between now and the election, and you've got this very bruising Republican primary that's about to take place. And it looks like Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. And as we recall, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in the last election.
Right. But in the last one, Anna, it was theoretical about his age. Now it's practical. And a lot of this is in party, which we're not used to seeing. You're not used to seeing in party polls saying that the incumbent should be primaried. What's your take on how much distress this reflects?
Well, I would argue that American voters, including Democratic voters, of course, have now had 2.5 years of actually seeing President Joe Biden out and about, confused on stage, unable to pronounce names of individuals that he appointed to his cabinet, including Javier Becerra, who he calls Javier Baccaria. And there are all sorts of moments that don't look good for President Joe Biden in regard to showing strength, providing some confidence to American voters that he is mentally and physically capable to do the job, which is incredibly taxing, incredibly difficult. And I would just say that it's not based on one poll. Yes, CNN came out with the latest poll indicating that the majority of Democratic voters would like the party to nominate someone other than Joe Biden. But in the same week, the Wall Street Journal came out with its poll that showed that 2/3 of Democratic voters want someone else. In the exact same poll, the Wall Street Journal poll, in a matchup between Biden and Trump, by a margin of 11 points, voters, Democratic voters, not Democratic voters, voters overall feel that Trump has a more impressive record of accomplishments as opposed to Biden. So if we think that Biden is going to be the best person to beat Trump in a general election, I would say that we should not look back at 2020. We should look at what the last 2.5 years look like, and we should take these polls seriously. For Biden, in my opinion, the biggest mask-off moment is essentially ignoring the will of the American people, including the Democratic electorate, and refusing to drop out of this race.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.